Grinch.
This looks toxic.
It's fruity smelling.
It smells like Kool-Aid, man.
Sour.
Oh, yes. Ooh.
Hi, everybody, and welcome aboard to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. You know, just about every holiday season, most people just can't wait to gather with friends and family to celebrate the season. And for many, drinking is a simple pleasure and can become the focus of the party. However, one unfortunate consequence with this is during the holiday season, it is no secret that there is a sharp increase in alcohol-related accidents and deaths. And there's also another consequence to consider. If you keep a lot of alcohol in the home, could you be guilty of creating an easy path for underage drinking? When we come back, we'll meet several people who know all too well the serious consequences of how this tis the season to be jolly may not be so jolly after all. You have to be careful. You might find the APD or any other PD behind you. We'll be right back with more Local Matters.
Yes. Let me see you move. Love never felt so good. Can't I die if it ever could? Not like you. Oh.
All right, guys. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. Holiday cheers are great. However, one unfortunate consequence with holiday cheers is a reportedly sharp increase in alcohol-related accidents and deaths. Could we be guilty of promoting underage drinking, especially during holiday seasons? Joining me to talk about the dangers of holiday cheers is our newly elected mayor of Anniston, Mayor Jack Draper, and the executive director of ASAP, Mr. Saram Selassie. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to Local Matters.
All right, thank you
where
for
living
having
local
me.
never felt so darn good.
Great.
Right. You know what? It's true. This is the holiday season. This is a time to just really have fun and do holiday cheers. 'Tis the season to be jolly.
Right.
And you know, I really applaud you for coming aboard, and especially you, Mayor Jack Draper.
Well, thank you.
You're going to be talking and telling your story. We'll hear from you in just a moment. But for you to come on this time of the year to really promote what you're doing with ASAP. Tell us why you decided to really come on board at this time of the year and what your role is to the community.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you guys having us on again. I am the executive director of the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention. And every 2 years, SAMHSA, which is a big acronym, but it stands for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, they sponsor these national town hall meetings throughout the country to educate the public about underage drinking and to mobilize those communities around its prevention. And so this year we said, you know, we done one already back in April with you guys assisting us and really, really good turnout there at the Oxford Civic Center. This time we wanted to do something a little different. So reaching out to you, we wanted to really tie it into this whole holiday season and really help our community understand about what could be going on in their home revolving around especially underage drinking.
Especially underage drinking. And Mayor, again, welcome aboard to Local Matters. You are on with a very special story, your own story about underage drinking. Tell us about you. In the past, you've had some challenges in regard to underage drinking. Tell us how did that happen?
Well, I actually started drinking as an early teenager.
As an early teenager.
Succumbing to peer pressure, trying to ultimately fit in, had friends who drank. And oftentimes on the weekends at a friend's house where parents were out of town, alcohol was accessible, and we would drink. And ultimately, I learned that that's not something that I can in any way do safely or responsibly. But I did start at an early age. And that was a great disappointment to my parents as well, I promise you.
But you know, here's the thing I heard you say, you started and you were right at home. It wasn't like you really had to go far. And that's something we have to consider, we have to think about, parents, is that a lot of times when we do have alcohol around, we tell our kids, they know this is alcohol, don't touch. But kids, I mean, what is the old saying, when the mouse is away, when the cat's away, the mouse will play. And so you start off a little sipping, a little here, a little bit there, and the next thing you knew, Mayor Draper, you was probably sipping everywhere.
Oh, I was, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I was a drinker of the type that once I begin drinking, I cannot stop drinking. But again, it started at an early age.
And so it started, again, right there in the home.
Yes, and at friends' houses.
How old
as well.
were you when you started to sip here, a little bit sipping here and there? About how
14,
old were you?
actually.
So were you living here in Anniston? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Montgomery and was living in Montgomery then.
So you're not a true Annistonian.
Well, I was born in Anniston, and we moved from Anniston when I was 8.
When you were 8. So
Yes.
okay, so you moved from Anniston when you were 8, went down to Montgomery, and so you grew up there in Montgomery, and that's where you started to kind of hanging out with your friends, and started right there in the home. When parents went away, then you guys would take off into the refrigerator and start to kind of do a little bit of sipping here and sipping there.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
Now-
let me add to that 1 second, because it's very important. It's something that we're seeing in our communities. When parents actually, especially knowingly, allow some youth to drink in the homes, that's what's called social hosting.
Yes.
And that's a really big problem that we're starting to see. I remember even me growing up, that certain parents would throw bonfires or have little sleepovers at the house, and their logic was, well, if they're doing it in my sight, it's okay, I can see it.
Right.
Well, no, that, as we already can hear, even from Mayor Draper's story, that can be what's called the age of onset, or the age when a youth is exposed to alcohol. Their minds are still developing, and they possibly could become addicted just like that. So, you know, we really want our parents, especially around this holiday season, to be aware that you shouldn't be social hosting, and also be responsible. We're not telling anybody not to drink, you know, that it's completely legal if you're, you know, at the age of 21 or older. But again, be careful about what you're doing in the home, because you could be setting a pattern for later on in a youth's life.
And I do want to talk about that a little bit later in the show, because we're going to meet one of your senior prevention specialists, Jason Lindo.
Right.
And we want to meet him and talk to him about some of the strategies that he's using going out in the community and working with young people and talking with young people. And particularly also, again, it starts in the home when you do want to make sure that you're doing a responsible hosting. But I want to go back, Mayor Draper, to your story again, to when you mentioned you started off drinking, started off at home, just sort of sipping a little here, there, a little there. When did you realize that it was no longer it was no longer moderate drinking for you, but you were starting to become really dependent upon it?
It was later in life, quite frankly, in my 30s, but the path began there. Now, I do want to be clear on something. My parents did not condone me
Right.
drinking.
No.
Nor did my friends'
No.
parents
Right.
condone us drinking, so
No.
they weren't hosting parties for us.
Right.
Although that is a problem.
That is a
I
problem, right,
understand
that particular
and
bit.
illegal.
But yours didn't start off like that with
No,
someone
no,
hosting
not-
a party and that.
no,
you
not
just
at all.
You were just being a kid, a curious kid, and going in there.
That's correct.
when
We
you
were
shouldn't
doing
have
what
been.
we should not have
Right,
been
right.
doing.
Going in there,
Absolutely.
starting to drink, and
Right.
then you looked up and you realized that I can't almost function unless I get a drink.
Well, that's true. And some people, like me, simply cannot responsibly or in any healthy way drink alcohol. I'm not saying that everyone is like that
No.
by any means. I mean, adults can enjoy alcohol. I mean, it adds to the spirit of an
course,
occasion.
of course.
But some adults cannot, and I am one of those adults. Children, however, are not emotionally equipped to handle alcohol.
No.
They're not mature enough to handle alcohol.
They're not.
I was not mature enough to handle alcohol.
And so you mentioned you started like that right about 14.
Correct.
So of course now you finish high school and you do well and you go on off to college. And then let's talk about that, because now you're with your college friends. And you studied at the University of, was it Alabama?
At Alabama.
University of Alabama. So I'm sure there that you were able to say, all right, now I can really drink.
Well, and I do think that it affected my grades. It certainly did. I was able to overcome that at times.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately, again, my alcohol consumption affected me with my friends, family, and ultimately my work. And it did begin. I didn't drink all the time when I
Well,
was
of
a
course,
teenager
right.
by any means.
Right.
But it did start there.
But it was
and led
but
me
it's-
down a path.
But it started there, and it led you down a path that you did not want to go down.
Absolutely not.
And you found yourself in some hot water with law enforcement. You mentioned.
Well, I mean, as a teenager, I mean, my friends and I had interactions with the Montgomery Police Department,
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
frankly.
When we
And they
come-
were doing their job.
Right.
It was illegal for us to be doing what
Of
we were
course,
doing.
right, but they were doing their job. And when
Yeah.
we come back, we're going to talk more with, of course, our mayor, Jack Draper, and of course, Saram Salisi, that is here with ASAP. And we're going to talk more about your story, about the mayor's story, about how he found himself in some trouble. But also, we're going to talk more about how he was able to transform and recover from that. But it's not, it's not easy. Sometimes you go down that road. Most people sometimes don't make it back, and when they do make it back, it's years later. So we'll be right back with more. You're watching Local Matters. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Local Matters, where living local never felt so darn good. I am joined with our newly elected mayor here in Anniston, Mayor Jack Draper, and also Mr. Saram Salasi. He is the executive director of ASAP. And we've been talking all morning about the dangers of drinking, of course, underage drinking, especially during the holiday season. I mean, it's great to say 'tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la, but not until you find yourself or find your child in some really big trouble. And Mayor Draper has come aboard to talk to us and share with us that he found himself in some trouble too as a young child, because he did just that, doing a little bit of sneaking, sipping here and there. And so, welcome back.
All right.
So, you mentioned too that there are so many different types of assets that children can have. We mentioned one, generally it starts in the home, but there are other ways as well.
Right. And my question for you, Mayor Draper, Dottie did a wonderful job already talking about there's so many different ways youth get access to alcohol, but what were some of the ways that you went and, for our public that's listening, what are some of those things that they need to be on the lookout so their youth aren't possibly doing those same things?
Well, I'm not proud of this by any means, but my friends and I, when we were teenagers, would actually make fake IDs,
Wow.
fake driver's licenses.
Wow.
And we would find places that would sell us alcohol. And that was one way to get it, other than through, parents' houses when they weren't there. But there are creative ways to do it. And again, that is not something I'm proud of.
No,
Right.
But it is the truth.
You were 13, 14-year-old.
Well, I was
You were young.
17, 18
Yeah.
at that point.
Right, at that point.
But that's
Okay.
what we want the public to really know, that there are situations, especially in this day and age with so much technology, youth can create those fake IDs. And again, a lot of convenience store owners, we know that there are those signs there that's part of the physical design, as it's called, to hopefully deter underage drinking. But some store owners aren't complying with their own warnings that you must be 21 to drink. So we're really trying to encourage store owners and restaurant bars to please photo ID those individuals. And again, sometimes just use common sense.
Yeah.
Just because you may want that dollar, you may not know the type of path this particular young person may be on if you allow them to drink. So just cut it off there. If they're not 21, don't let them drink.
And I will say most of our stores here in the area, they do a pretty good job about asking for IDs, because I love to say it that when I go in, they always say, "May I see your ID, please?"
All right.
And I'm like, "Ooh, I must be looking pretty young. They're asking me for my ID." And I'm like, and they should know already by then that she's old, because she's all happy to show her ID. So I plop it out, and they usually look and go, "Ooh, ooh." And so I feel good. But no, really, most store owners, they do a pretty good job of asking for ID.
Right.
I will give them that. But there's some other ways too that children, so we know this starts in the home, they can do fake IDs. But I'm thinking about some of these other high energy drinks too, that when your kids are, you allow them to run into the store and they come back with these Red Bulls, I look at those sometimes too,
Right.
as precursors, if you will, to underage drinking.
Yeah, well, there's a whole nother side to, just substance abuse in general, which is what we do. I mean, people can be addicted to caffeine. There are all type of different substances in some of these products that you need to know how in which it affects the body of a young person. And so those are some things that we definitely need to look out too. And it's interesting that you say Red Bull, because you look at the packaging and it's all nice and colorful and stuff. Well, there are those Monster drinks, or then now you jump into Four Loko, which is, it may look like an energy drink, but it's an alcoholic beverage and a pretty potent alcoholic beverage as well. So, you know, to our parents out there, also look at what your youth may be going into the store purchasing and coming back in with. It may not be an energy drink at all. It may actually be an alcoholic beverage.
I know. And like I said, and I want to keep stressing that this is holiday time. Let's go back to having parties in the home and going back to this whole idea of being a responsible host. Now, here's a question I have for you guys. How many times have you gone to a party and when you walked in, of course, the food was there, the alcohol was there, and they did not have not one non-alcoholic beverage at all offered. And I can think of a couple of parties I've been to that I would say, wow, they don't have any type of non-alcoholic beverages to offer people. You know.
Yeah, there may be some, and I can't think of any in particular, but the ones I have been to, there has been someone in the home that, you know, has probably had an experience similar to Mayor Draper, and they had those non-alcoholic beverages there because they want to encourage anybody else that may be going through that same thing to, you know, we're here in support of you and wanting to see you get over your issues.
That's
and
right.
back to Mayor
That's
Draper,
right. That's
you know,
right.
how did you end up kind of getting out
realizing
of
that this is not for me, and I'm just not going to drink because it's not for me.
Well, I had to have a lot of help, quite frankly, and it came later on in life. I haven't had anything to drink in a little over 10 years. But it's
congratulations on that.
Well, it's God, quite frankly. I mean, it's faith with the support of
And I applaud
family
you.
and friends.
I really do, for you coming on sharing, because a lot of people want to, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to hide it. People are going to think bad about me. No. One thing I've learned when I worked with Oprah years and years ago, she used to always say that if you go ahead and tell your story and let people know where you've been, people will be amazingly proud to hear that you've transformed, that you've recovered from that. But you also take that power away, so no one can say, I heard, because you've already shared this with us.
Well, quite frankly, but for that experience, I wouldn't have the relationship with God that I have now.
That's right.
So in some respects, I am thankful for that. And my life has changed, certainly in the way that I think of myself and can relate to others. But it can take you down a path that you do not want to go down. And again, let me say, most people can drink responsibly and are healthy with it. So
but not everybody.
Not everybody. But no, by no means am I saying that people shouldn't drink alcohol.
No,
People like me shouldn't drink alcohol. That's
right. And again, I just want to say thank you for coming aboard Local Matters to share your story and to say that it was tough, but you came through it. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Mr. Saram Selassie, a senior prevention specialist, and we're going to be talking about just that. What measures do you put before the community to help people overcome who may have problems or have had problems in the past? We'll be right back. You're watching Local Matters. Hi everybody, welcome back to Local Matters. We're living local, never felt so good. I'm Dottie Rimpsey and I'm joined now with Mr. Jason Lindell. He's the Senior Prevention Specialist with ASAP. And of course, Mr. Saram Selassie is still here with me. And so I want to say welcome on, Mr. Jason. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
Good deal. You know, for those of you who are just joining us, our newly elected mayor, Jack Draper, was on, and he was kind enough and courageous enough and bold enough to come on and say, you know what, I had a problem drinking, and I no longer drink. But it started when he was younger, and that's the real significance of his story. It started when he was younger. And this is holiday time, and I just want to make sure that we understand that because it is holiday time, we have to be careful with, hosting parties and having alcohol around, because young people are, believe it or not, there are some kids who are going to be sitting around and looking and seeing what they can sip on, when your head's turned.
Right.
You are out there in the community, your agency, because a lot of people don't understand that drinking starts at a very young age. Most time people think, well, my son's too young. He's only in the 8th grade. I don't have to worry about him doing that. Maybe I'll have to worry when he gets to college. But it starts really young. You guys are in the schools. You're in middle schools?
Yes, ma'am. We work a lot in the county, or I personally work in the school system, middle school, that 5th to 8th grade age group. So we do an evidence-based program, education, with the kids, because let's be honest, I mean, how many of them could go home and there might be beer in the refrigerator, there might be wine in the cabinet, there might be liquor in the cupboard somewhere. So we try to educate them the dangers of
The
it at a young
dangers.
age, because let's be honest, these kids watch TV.
Yes.
If you've watched TV in the last 24 hours, you've probably seen a commercial for
Yes.
alcohol. And what do they make it look like? A fun activity, guys make it more manly, things of that nature. And kids are very susceptible to what they see. They don't show the negative consequences of that. So we
Yes.
just simply try to educate them on the dangers of it, because they're at a very pivotal age where their brain and their body is developing, especially their brain. That's why the drinking age is 21, because your brain stopped developing. And just to get them to realize that it is dangerous. Now,
Very dangerous.
and it's going to react to everybody differently, because all our bodies are different.
And you said something I like too. Sometimes even just the society we live in glamorizes
right.
drinking.
Absolutely.
The reality shows that we watch most of the time, especially the ones that I've watched. I mean, women are always, they're beautiful and they've got these big, beautiful homes, but they're always either in the home drinking or at a very plush restaurant drinking.
Right.
And so even our society sometimes can glamorize drinking, but again, they show that side, but not the really negative side of what drink, especially. And I like the fact you said too, at 21, you would think, you might say, well then why I can go into the Army at 18, but I can't drink to 21, why?
It's your brain. Your brain is not fully developed until the early 20s, between that 21 and 25 age limit. So that's why obviously the drinking age is 21. And when you talk to middle school kids, they don't a lot of times understand. They sometimes think it's maturity level. And I've met some pretty immature 30, 40, 50-year-olds who don't know how to control themselves, whether it be with alcohol or not. So just simply education and get them to understand the dangers of this stuff.
So when you're going into the schools and you're bringing awareness and education, what type of strategies are you using? Are you going in with videos?
We've got videos, we've got activities. We do everything from, I've got fatal vision goggles, which basically throws your eye off just a little bit.
Wow.
So my fifth graders, a lot of times, simple things is walking a straight line.
And they couldn't even do it.
I mean, it's kind of like driving a car.
Yeah.
If you're 2 feet to the right, you've run off the road. If you're 2 feet to the left, you've run into oncoming traffic. So I make them do different things like that. Some of them can drive a remote control car. My eighth graders, when they're close to getting that permit age, I put them on tricycles and make them go in cones. And so we do a lot of hands-on activity. I was a visual learner, so I like videos and activities.
Yes.
That's what stuck with me longer. So.
And most people are. And most people, there's also that word too, a kinesthetic learner too. That's when you are right there with it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it.
And it makes it more fun for them and interactive, and keeps them engaged, and I think they get more out of it than me just standing up and talking to them for 45 minutes or so.
All right.
And I want to add, Dottie, a lot of people may not know, and again, this is why it's so important for us to continue to let the public know that we are here, the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention. All of those particular items that he spoke about, of course, we service all the schools in the county. But
I was going to say, what schools are you servicing?
All the schools in the county, whatever they need. We have a clearinghouse, which is a big room. You've seen our clearinghouse with pamphlets, the fatal vision goggles, different games that families and church groups can play to help educate not just the young people, but adults need information.
Yes.
We're in this field, but there's something new coming out every day, a new way for kids to get hooked on some type of drug. So, we are here as an agency, and we want to be that support system for the community.
And I want to thank you for coming on and providing us with awareness and education and what you're doing in the community. Because a lot of times if people don't see you, they'll think you're not doing anything, but you are. And I want to say thank you for joining us here on Local Matters. And to be safe, if you go to a party, don't try to drive. Even if you have to call a friend, your child, an aunt, an uncle, or Uber, call somebody. But don't try to get in the car and drive, okay? We'll see you back here. Have safe and happy safe holidays. We'll see you back next year with more Local Matters.